Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest on the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to Apply. Hey, Jean-Pierre Aramouni is on the line today. He's the founder at LaunchX Ventures and Play, and he's an advisor. He's also an operator, and he also participated in the FII priority event in Miami, where I went out for the first time to an FII Institute event, and I was just pleasantly surprised, which led to this entire interview series, which JP is a part of. JP, first off, I want to say thanks for making some time for us, and welcome to the show.
Of course. Nice to meet you, Adam.
So LaunchX Ventures and Play, I mean, one of the things as I've looked into your background that you're known for is building and scaling purpose-driven ventures, and specifically talking as well about, the slant or the angle on planetary well-being. So I guess just to get us kicked off here, how did you get started in business? Like, where did all this begin for you?
It's an interesting question. So I started my career in strategy consulting almost 20 years ago, and I think that gave me a pretty interesting and broad skill set across different sectors. I lived out of a suitcase for a couple of years, traveling the world, working on a lot of impact-driven strategies, most of the time with ministries of foreign governments, like, for example, putting together their economic growth strategies, their agriculture development strategies. It was a really interesting way to start my career. It gave me exposure to a lot of sectors and different countries and cultures.
What was that like? I want to stay in those early days just a little bit longer, like advising, ministries, countries, and as you said, living out of the suitcase. What was that like? Like being on the road all the time and having that vantage point. Like, what was that like?
I mean, it was the best form of education for me. I went straight from grad school into this job, and I learned so much just from doing the work and being on the ground in the field with clients, with my colleagues at the time. So I would say it was like the biggest accelerator for both the personal and professional growth for me.
Yeah. So during that time, I don't know if you started with this focus or if it kind of like there was an epiphany moment or maybe it was a progression. So whatever the story is, like how did this focus and how did this journey lead to your current focus on regenerative ventures? Like how'd that take place?
Yeah, I mean, after I kicked off my career in consulting, actually, the second half of my career, I would say like the last 12 years or so has been in tech, working for high growth tech ventures. I started off on the early growth team at Uber. This was a team that scaled the company from 50 to 500 cities. And I would say, the skill set that I got from my time at Uber and other venture-backed tech companies really complemented my background in strategy consulting. It allowed me to not only put together nice strategies and visions, but also like learn how to get things done and how to be a true operator on the ground. And that's a skill set that stayed with me up until now, with my current focus as an entrepreneur and advisor. And, the more I focus on scaling tech companies and understanding how impactful scalable companies could be, the more I realize that it's not only about being efficient, but also leaving a mark on this planet and impact. So it coincided with a big pivotal shift in my personal life when I was doing a lot of inner work and understanding my bigger purpose in life and what I wanted to contribute to this world. That inner journey coincided with my kind of story scaling Uber and other companies and understanding how I could transfer that skill set into something a little more impactful.
Any learnings? I mean, I know now, that's been many years ago, and I'm like kind of just juxtaposing when you were getting started there and, where you're at now today. Like anything that you kind of learned like along that way that just kind of surprised you? Like you're like, wow, I wasn't expecting that as you got further and further along. Like, any surprises?
Quite a few. I would say the main one is when you think of scale and speed that comes with it, and if the efficiency often doesn't always equate to sustainability, right? And that's kind of something I picked up along the way. And, I'm super grateful for my experience in working for high growth tech ventures. I learned a lot, but oftentimes when you're thinking long-term sustainability and regeneration, there's a tension there and they often contradict. And so I think where we are in the world today, the last couple of years, there's a big shift in human consciousness and people are becoming more aware of not only their inner well-being, but also how they're connected to the outer world and everything that's happening with the planet. And I think when you take that view, that perspective, and you layer it on top of how we build businesses, ultimately our whole perspective and approach to building businesses shifts as a result. And that's kind of the transformation that I went through personally and the shift in the focus of my career more recently.
And actually, this is a great segue. So let's get to maybe the recent side of what you're doing. What kind of opportunities are seeing? Like, what excites you? I mean, you're at the intersection of transformation and planetary impact. What excites JP right now? You've been doing this for a while.
No, it's a good question. A lot of things excite me is the answer, but I would say the most exciting opportunities for me right now are those that kind of dissolve this illusion of separation between what we call personal healing and well-being and planetary healing or planetary regeneration. I've come to see that the same disconnection that leads to human burnout, anxiety, emotional fragmentation is exactly what drives some of our environmental crisis. And when people begin to reconnect with their bodies, with each other, with nature, they start to move differently in this world. They make different choices. That's the real transformation that I was referring to earlier.
Yeah.
So,
I want to
in terms of opportunities, I mean, maybe I can mention one specific space that I'm deeply excited about. It's biochar. Biochar is really the transformation of organic waste into a new byproduct. So on the surface, it's considered a soil amendment, but essentially it's a stable form of carbon that's created by burning organic waste in low oxygen environment. And then when you zoom out, it becomes really what it becomes is a powerful metaphor. You take what is considered waste, in this case, food waste or agricultural waste, you apply heat to it, and then what happens is it transforms it into something that really restores life, right? You put it back in the soil, it regenerates the soil. I like to refer to it as a superfood for the earth, and it's an incredible solution that is derived from waste. So these are the kind of solutions that I'm focused on right now, and this solution, biochar in particular, is one that truly excites me.
And so I want to spend a little bit of the time we have here, too, going into your firms, too. So LaunchX Ventures and Play, like whichever you want to start with. Maybe tell us a little bit more about the companies.
Yeah, so LaunchX Ventures is a boutique advisory firm that I've had for over 6 years now. I started after I left Uber, and sometimes I go in full-time, sometimes I go in on a fractional basis, depending on my entrepreneurial ventures. But basically what I do is I advise companies on the journey from 0 to 1. That's what I call it. It could be launching new verticals, launching new markets, and often work with early stage founders, executives who are considering new lines of businesses. And more recently, a lot of my focus has been on regeneration, whether it's focused on human well-being or planetary well-being, working with different companies and helping them think about their next stage of growth. So particularly biochar companies, as I mentioned before, and companies around the human mental health and well-being space.
And I'm curious, Jean. So you attended, as you mentioned, the FII in Miami. One of the reasons I'm doing this series is just because I just had such a great time as I was there. The networking, I was surprised on many different levels. What was your experience with FI? Like when to Miami or any other events you may have attended? And how did you really get introduced to the institute?
No, it's a great question. So my first experience attending FII was actually the inaugural one in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia back in, I want to say 2017.
Oh, wow. Hold on. So that makes you old school. That's awesome. So there wasn't, tell me more. That's awesome. I got a legacy on the line.
Yeah, I've seen the evolution. No, at the time I was actually based in Hong Kong, and I was on the executive team of Think Labs, a startup in the travel tech and hospitality tech space. And I was working directly with our CEO to help him fundraise for our next round. So I joined him on the first trip to Saudi Arabia for our fundraising activities. And that was my first exposure to FII. And it was honestly an incredible experience for me. It blew me away. We met with so many high-profile investors and family offices and LPs that eventually invested in our company. But for me, it was incredible on that front to meet different capital allocators and investors. And second, it was honestly a surprising reunion of friends and colleagues from different parts of the world and different networks and communities I've been involved in that were somehow reunited at what people call Davos in the desert.
Yeah, the Davos in the desert. What good branding, by the way. Every time I heard that, I'm like, come on, man. I'm like, that's great branding. I'm a sucker for alliteration. And I have not been to the one in Riyadh yet. I know that one. I think it's coming up in, don't quote me on this, whoever's
in October.
October. Okay, in October. Yeah, I'm thinking about making it out there. I'm like, wow, that'd be amazing. I've never been to Riyadh in general, but it would be like to go to something like this and to, do what we do in terms of coverage would be awesome. So working on it. But I know next year, the Miami one, that's going to be a mainstay. Like that's already, like I cover a lot of large conferences. I'll be at Milken. Well, for everybody listening, we're recording this in April of 2025, and the Milken conference is normally in the beginning of May. So I'll be at Milken in May, early May. It's coming up in 2 weeks already. It's one of my favorites. And so I know I'll be back out at FII. I'm so excited about that. But JP, first off, man, I know your time is short here. I appreciate you making some time for us, but I do want to give you the opportunity to, I know we just kind of scratched the surface on some of the work that you're doing at your firms. And for those that are interested and like to connect with you or your team, how do people follow up? How do they follow your journey?
Thanks for that, Adam. I'd say the best way is to connect with me on LinkedIn. You can find me, Jean-Pierre Aramouni. I'm happy to connect on either of the ventures I'm involved in, whether it's my advisory firm, anything across regeneration, as I mentioned, planetary regeneration or human regeneration, any work that could be useful for there, whether as an advisor or as an operator. And then also, I'm an entrepreneur at heart, so I'm always looking at the most innovative, creative ideas at this intersection of human and planetary well-being. Working on a few ideas right now that I'm not quite ready to share, but if anyone would like to reach out, discuss some ideas, or potentially collaborate, feel free to ping me on LinkedIn and we'll take it from there.
Wonderful. And for everybody listening, we'll definitely put the links to LinkedIn and all that in the show notes so that you can connect with JP. And speaking of the audience, if this is your first time with Mission Matters and you haven't done it yet, hit that subscribe or follow button. This is a daily show. Each and every day, we're bringing you new content, new ideas, and hopefully new inspiration to help you along the way on your journey as well. So again, hit that subscribe or follow button. And JP, man, thanks again for coming on the show. I'm looking forward to seeing you in Miami next year. I have a feeling we're both going to be there and break bread. So thanks for coming on.
Of course. Thanks so much, Adam. Have a great one.